Welcome to the Disrupt Now podcast. This is Natalie Viglione, your host, and this is season 2, unlocking the cosmic mysteries around New Earth magic. My desire is to bring conversations that serve as cosmic medicine for all of the sacred souls that seek the revealing of the magic and mystery of the organic celestial energies. I powerfully step in as a sacred vessel for the cosmic mother, or as we can say, the divine feminine energy rising. I walk an authentic druidic path of primordial tradition, and I am here to share wisdom and the highest truth for the betterment of all beings, animals, minerals, plant life, and all that is. Please join me on this journey to explore and awaken the magic again. Welcome back to another Disrupt Now podcast episode. I'm Natalie Viglione, the host. So this is part 2 with my guest, Jerry Marzinsky. If you haven't watched or listened to part 1, I would definitely recommend that you stop this, hit pause, and go listen to the part 1. And part 1 is called Breaking the Spell, Truths About the Existence of Lower Astral Parasites and Negative Energy Attachments. And so that is definitely something you'll want to watch. Then come back to this one because it's a continuation, which will give you the complete an entire story of our intriguing and important conversation about lower astral and negative energies and what I call parasites. So in part 1, we journeyed into the why and what of Jerry's journey working in the largest and most difficult mental institution in the world, as well as a prison, where he confronted and learned what these voices truly are. Now, in this part 2, we dig into a how. So we dig into the patterns of the voices, because time and time again, what Jerry saw is as he sat with souls day after day after day for many, many years, he saw that these souls were plagued with these parasites, but he was able to begin to recognize patterns. Now, these patterns are very vital to know, because what that assisted with is helping people to begin to learn to break free, breaking out of the fear patterning. And then also in this episode, we're going to deep dive into solutions to break free from these lower astral parasites and these negative energy attachments. And actually in my work of vibrational medicine, this is important to talk about as well, because often when working with clients, it's easy to discern once you begin to separate yourself from these negative, and when I say negative, it's a vile energy. And we get into a lot of these details in the part 1 and in this part 2. So to know how to break free, it's important to know that this isn't something to fear, but rather recognize and be able to stand up as, again, I mentioned in the first episode, as a warrior, which means standing up, rising up, and how to cleanse and purge your energetic systems of these parasitic entities, if we will. So Jerry Marzinsky is a retired licensed psychotherapist, and he has over 40 years of experience working with and studying the thought processes of those that have been deemed, and I'm putting these in quotations, psychotic and criminally insane, in some of the most volatile psychiatric institutions and also in a prison. His formal academic training comprises of a BA in psychology from Temple University, a master's degree in counseling from the University of Georgia, and 2 years of study in a PhD psychology program. And he currently has a private practice. And as I mentioned in part 1, he's the co-author of the book, which is called An Amazing Journey into the Psychotic Mind, Breaking the Spell of the Ivory Tower. So let's dig in to part 2.
But I didn't stop. That was like a shot across my bow. So still working with this fella. And I found the book The Voice of Knowledge by Miguel Ruiz, a South American Yaqui shaman.
Mm.
And he was talking about these
Mm.
things. So I hit a chapter where he was talking about something that looked just like the voices. And he was saying also that they were parasites. And I went, that's very interesting. Somebody else who sees this. So I brought that into the prison and I brought this fella back in and I said, I'm going to read you this paragraph. I'd like you to tell me what you think about it. I was always doing stuff like that. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do the voices do when you do this? I mean, constant, hundreds of questions. So I read that paragraph to him. When I got to the part where he was talking about these things being vampires,
Yeah.
energy sucking creatures, all of a sudden behind my head, a loud electrical crackle erupted. It was like crack. And I'm like, what blazes is that? And then it started moving to my right and it went onto the right hand wall and it started moving up the wall. And I look at him and he's got this zombie like look on his face. He's just staring at me. And I'm like, he's going to attack. And I pushed my chair against the wall with my feet toward him just in case he did. And then I asked him, do you hear that? He didn't say anything. He just kept staring at me like a zombie. He just staring at me. And I'm like, this is weird. And this thing here's this crackling on the wall, moving up the right hand wall. I couldn't see it. I couldn't smell it. There was no taste to it. It
You could
just kept
hear it.
cracking. I could hear it, and it was loud, and it was moving, and it was just a crack all the way up the wall, and then across the entire room. And so it wasn't just short. It wasn't like a minute or 30 seconds. This went on for a while, and then it cracked down the left-hand wall, and then it jumped into a Rubbermaid trash can right at my left leg, and it's crackling in the trash can. And the whole time I'm keeping an eye on this guy and looking at the crackle. I didn't see anything. I bent over looking at the trash can. There's nothing there, just the crackling. And then all of a sudden, just like that, boom, it went out. It stopped. And I'm in shock again. This guy slowly gets up and he goes, I gotta leave. And he shuffles out of the office. And I'm like, yeah, get the hell out of here, man. Go.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my mind is totally blown. Twice, I didn't think these things could affect physical reality.
Right.
Now, twice they've already done it right to my face on purpose to spite me. And I'm thinking, if they can do that, what else can they do?
Right.
I didn't know. There was no roadmap, there was no guidebook to this. This was a whole different area of reality that I'm entering. And I'm not sure I wanted to go in there.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it was like opening the door to a whole different reality
Yeah.
and not knowing what's there or what the ground rules are or what can hurt you there or it's like visiting a foreign country and not knowing any of the rules or the language or anything. But I just went into shock. I got up, I examined the walls. There were no burn mark. There was no evidence whatsoever of anything having happened. I went out in the hallway. The doctor's office was empty. He wasn't in yet. The nurse wasn't in yet. There was no cause that I could see for this. There was no explanation. And I just closed my office and stared out the window for the whole day. I was in shock. I was in absolute shock. So it took me probably 3 months, I think it was, to get up the courage to call this guy back and start talking to him about what happened that day. And he showed up and he was in good shape. I thought he would be a wreck. So if he had something that could do this in him,
Yeah.
and I started asking him, he looked good. I said, I'm surprised you look good. And he goes, no, I'm doing what you told me to. I haven't lost any ground, but I haven't gained any. So he said, I'm holding them off. I haven't got rid of them, but I'm holding them off. And I asked him, did you hear that crackling in the office the last time you were here? And he said, yeah, I heard it. But he said, I'm surprised you heard it. And I said, yeah, I heard it. And I said, what was that? And he said, that was them. I said, them who? The voices? He said, yeah, that was the voices. And I said, what in the blazes were they doing? And he said, they were trying to scare you off. And he said, they did a damn good job of it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't call him in for 3 months. And then he says, I was surprised you heard it. He told me. And I said, you looked really weird when you got up to get out of the office. You looked like a zombie. I said, what were you thinking? What were the voices telling you when you got when you were walking out of the office? He said they were telling me to go get a shank and stick it in your gut, a homemade prison knife. And I'm thinking, oh, he wouldn't do that. I've worked with him for 6 months. I know him. He's an okay guy. He's trying. And I said, why didn't you do it? He said, I couldn't find one and nobody would give me one.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot, to say the least.
But yeah, I think what saved me is I'm an adrenaline junkie. I always have been. If I wasn't, I don't think I could have done this.
Yeah. When I read your book, I was like, this guy's a warrior. I feel it, I see it. It takes courage and bravery to go into these realms where truth lies in whatever capacity in which we're doing it. And this one's a big one because it's interesting because I think more people are getting more open to this concept today because there's more being revealed. It is the quote unquote apocalypse. It is the unveiling of truths. However, I do know from personal experience, there are people that I know and I know well that are very much afflicted in this way, yet remain extremely blocked in allowing themselves to actually see the reality of what is transpiring for them, which again, I just go over this list that because I wrote it all down as you were going through it. It's interesting because you can literally go down the list and see this happening in people.
Yes.
And it absolutely is a pattern. And with that blockage and that lack of, so no matter what spiritual undertaking that someone takes on, if they are continuously blocked to the fact that it is actually entities outside of themselves causing these horrific thoughts, very much so into the point of you don't deserve you, why are you even here, kind of connotations, is it's like the trip just continuing down the same, it is.
It's very insidious because you experience thoughts in your head. And we're taught, everybody believes that you experience them in your head, they belong to you. Manuel Swedenborg, the Christian mystic, he said none of your thoughts belong to you. They either come in from heaven or they come in from hell. You're the chooser. You're the one who chooses to entertain those thoughts. And if you give your attention to the negative ones, then the negative ones grow. So it's like the Indians, the natives said, you have two wolves on each shoulder. The one you feed is the one that's going to grow. And it's just like the cartoons. Here's the angels on one side trying to talk sense to you, and then the demons on the other side. Oh, it's more fun to do this stuff. So it's a battle. It's a constant spiritual
Truly,
battle.
truly. When it's come into my awareness and knowing that this kind of extreme in this negative pathway was never meant to get to this place that we're in now, because it actually stops creation. It stops the ability for someone to evolve if they're constantly, imagine how many people are the committing of the suicide, it's just, it takes you into it truly creates in a place that wasn't supposed to be hell.
Right.
And this awareness is so, that's why this awareness is so imperative, so vital. Because if more humans can realize this negative aspect is not them, is not us,
Right.
it actually allows us to truly, energy will die, so to speak. Yeah.
I actually had one schizophrenic write me back and said, "Thank you for letting me know that these voices aren't me." He said, "I can handle it from here." That's the first thing that they need to understand, that those voices aren't them. And that's what they're being blocked from by the establishment, by the mental health establishment.
Yes.
Oh, it's you. It's your brain is broken. There's nothing you can do except take our expensive toxic
Mm,
meds. You can't fight back. You can't do anything. You're helpless. You have to rely on us and our expensive meds. You have to keep come seeing us. No, they have to fight back against these things. You can't
exactly.
tolerate them. You have to fight back. If you don't fight back, they will push your personality out of the way and they will take over. And believe me, I've seen people where they have taken them over. Matter of fact, I have a poem here written by one of them that was completely taken over, if you want to hear it.
Yeah. Yes.
This guy murdered 4 people.
Mm.
He cut his girlfriend up into little pieces, and they still haven't found all those pieces.
Oh my
He,
God.
he is currently in the Colorado State Prison in a maximum security unit in isolation. He almost killed his mother. He sent this poem to his mother, and he's talking about his voices here. Now, I'm going to have a hard time reading it because he wrote it with pencil and it fades in and out. And he named it "There Is a Monster." So he's talking about the monster inside himself, the voices.
Hmm.
He said, "There is a monster that lives in my head. This monster is SEUL. Oh, real. Let me
Hmm.
fix that. This monster is real. It's not under my bed. My monster tells me things to do." Here he is saying the voices are telling him things to do. It tells me sometimes when the news is new. It tells him things normally he wouldn't know. My monster is crying as it spent all its years drowning out my courage and disposing my tears. My monster is strong. That's what I like to think. My monster is coming when it's time to drink. So he's saying when he drinks, the monster gets stronger, takes over. My monster is ready. My monster is strong. What will I do when my monster is gone? There's a lot of prisoners who didn't want to take their psychiatric meds because they get supernaturally strong when they get pissed off. Supernaturally strong, way stronger than a human being should be. And the voices, I had one guy tell me that the voices do the fighting for me. He says, I just get out of my way. They take over my body and they do the fighting. So he's saying, what will I do when my monster is gone? So it's his companion. He said, my monster will never leave. That is his plan. It overwhelms me when I'm making a stand. Okay. So he says, when I try to fight against it, it overwhelms me. He says, there's a monster inside of me. I thought I was strong. How could this be? My monster has a name, too. He walks in the dark whispering Yazoo. I don't know what that means. My monster is watching me. He won't tell you my name. My monster is the shadows you cannot see. His heart is heavy. He plays for the game. My monster is awake. He wants to be monster. He's as blood from a lake. His bond is with me now, monster. He has nothing else to do. My monster's awake. This guy
Wow.
killed four people.
Wow.
Talking about what to do.
Yeah.
The first thing that a schizophrenic needs to understand is that those voices are not them.
Yep.
The voices want them to believe that they are them. That has to be established, that it's not them. Those voices are not in their best interest. Their intention is not in the best interest of the client. They're liars. They haven't done anything good for them. Can't be trusted. So you have to break the voices away from the victim. It's
Yeah.
the voices that drive paranoid schizophrenia. If you can get rid of them by any means, exorcism, drugs, whatever, person returns to normal, just like that. So there has to be a break. Otherwise, the person believes that it's them. Something's wrong with them. And,
Exactly.
and that causes more confusion and paranoia because it's okay, my mind is gone. I don't have control of my mind. It's not like there's this external force trying to attack me. It's my mind is broken. And that's exactly what friggin' psychiatry and Big Pharma are telling them.
Exactly.
That is a grave disservice. It's disgusting.
It is.
And they don't know any better. They're a bunch of freaking morons.
Exactly. And to that point real quick, I cannot almost say these words anymore because with the information that's available and just an awareness of come on, ask one question why. We can't sit here and say they don't know any better anymore. It's just mass delusion at this point and just putting your head down to get money and to just it's like ignorance is a choice today, I guess is what I'm trying ignorance,
Well,
ignoring,
you look what goes on. They go to medical school. They spend what 5 years studying psychiatry and all this garbage. They're invested in it. Now they have a profession. They can't change that. They know they're not curing anybody. Nobody's getting any better. That's probably part of their suicide rate,
Yeah,
you know.
definitely.
But they're trapped. They're trapped by the medical system. They got to pay their dues. They got to pay the bills.
Yeah,
They're trapped. But
yeah.
something has come out fairly recently, a energetic psychotherapy. It was not developed by a psychologist or a psychiatrist or an academic. It was developed by a ship captain who was a master mariner who always wondered about why people never got better by just talking to them. He later went and got his master's degree. The guy's name is John Mace. He developed a system called the MACE energy method.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I read that on your site that you became a practitioner within the method, right?
As soon as I saw that information, I said, this makes sense. This makes sense. I got led by almost a mystical circuitous route and found myself face to face with the chief training officer of the MACE system.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we were bantering a little bit together. And I said, I already read Mace's books. I was able to piece enough of it together for it to work. I'm using it with my clients. Why do I need to go for this expensive
Certification.
training?
Mm.
And she goes, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a
Mm.
lot more. I went and I got certified, and I'm glad I did. People are recovering it. And matter of fact, I think I have a couple of testimonials here. I'm just picking them randomly. This one says, "Hi Jerry, I wanted to let me get my glasses here. Wanted to thank you for the 3 sessions we had to date, surpassing the results of 30 years of cognitive therapy."
Mm.
Says it still baffles me, being someone who wants to grasp intellectually what's going on, how this therapy is straight to the point in dealing with these debilitating upsets. And after each session, there was a sense of freeing up that felt almost strange but peaceful. It still feels like the process of integrating my original life self into life. Overall, a tremendous growth. Thank you. You know,
That's
I,
awesome.
li- I listened to what John Ivory had to say, and I think this should be listened to by everyone. Let me see what else I got here. Here's another one. The session we had yesterday, I totally have more energy now. I'd like to set up another session to clean house. And it's one after another. They're going, this stuff works.
Yeah, and I think you like uniquely are poised to bring that work in a different way than potentially anyone else because of your experience in knowing what these patterns are, how to and ways to break those patterns. So I think it's very interesting to look at your weaving of journey because it is extremely unique, and that really in and of itself probably lends to such a greater degree of just feeling someone feeling I would say safe in your presence because you're already separating them from the negativity in which has brought down their life in however
Well,
many ways, right?
there's such a stigma to schizophrenia that they don't want to talk to anybody about it because it's
Exactly.
like, whoa, like that. When I was working in the emergency room, yeah, I could feel these things. I couldn't hear them, I couldn't see them, but I could feel them. It was like this icky electrical energy,
Yes.
and I would ask the
Back of your
patient, I
neck
go,
kind of thing.
it was my whole body. It
Yeah,
was like the closest when you get goose pimples, but it wasn't goose pimples. It was like this icky electrical energy. There's no other feeling like it on the planet that I've ever experienced.
exactly.
You know, and
I
the
had
stronger they
similar.
were, or the angrier they were, the more intense that feeling was. So I could ask a person in the emergency room, "Are you hearing voices?" And they go, "They didn't want to go into the hospital. They caused a lot of trouble." And I would ask them, and I'd get that feeling. And they would lie to me. They'd say, "No, I'm not hearing voices." I said, "Yes, you are, and this is how strong they are." And they were like, "How do you know? How'd you know that?" I know what this is like. I know what these voices do, what they're like. I understand them. It's just to have somebody who understands what these things are helps a lot
Yes.
because
It's and to
everybody else is telling them, "Oh, okay, you're broken, you're crazy, something's wrong with you."
exactly. Yeah, even people I've come across this experience of people that are very spiritual and not religious, meaning just spiritual in nature, knowing attaching themselves to this concept of the divine and whatever, still being very blocked with this because too many spiritual people have said it's something wrong with you that you need to integrate, or there's some kind of all of this trauma that's happened, there's a reason why it's happening to you have to figure it out and fix it, a feeling.
I had somebody yesterday, a client I was working with. She was an architect in Spain. And she said, I spent my whole life trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And so has a friend of mine who was she had her PhD in something. And we were both trying to figure out what went wrong with us. Inside of an hour, we had it with the MACE system. What had happened to her as a child, where she made a decision about herself, ruined a good segment of her life.
Yeah.
Because what happens with it, virtually everybody goes through a trauma, and schizophrenics go through a lot of traumas.
Yeah.
MACE can dissolve a trauma in an hour, and a lifelong trauma that's been there buried for decades can be gotten rid of just like that.
Yeah.
Because MACE have a spiritual component to it. And that was one of the things that John struggled with for a long time is, okay, you got the subconscious or the ego burying this garbage, this trauma in the subconscious to get rid of it. So it's no longer conscious,
Right.
but it's burying it alive. It's still alive there. You're
Exactly.
not
It's still the
aware of it
energy.
anymore, but the energy is still there.
Yeah.
It's like a computer virus
Yeah.
in your brain.
Yep.
So say you were traumatized by a certain kind of person at some time in your life, when maybe when you were a kid. That trauma's buried, but every time you run into a person like that, this goes off and there's an upset. And that upset gets projected outward at that person who is similar to what's buried in your subconscious. And your ego's telling them to either attack that person or run from them or avoid them. But every time you run into somebody like that, you're going to be upset. You're going to get upset. You're going to get angry. You're going to get irritated,
Yep.
and you don't even know why.
Triggers.
It looks like somebody. Yeah, it's a trigger.
Yeah.
He looks like somebody I hate.
Yep. Yep.
So what MACE does, it goes in there and it dissolves that. Okay. And what's so interesting about MACE, the therapist doesn't even need to know what the trauma is. You don't have to talk about it. They don't even need to know what it is to help you get rid of it. And the spiritual part is the spirit is used to locate where that trauma is buried. So the patient is asked to form an image of the negative identity or the components of that trauma. Once that image is formed, that's the location. That's the mailbox. That's where it's at. And once you know where it's at, then you can go after it and it can be dissolved.
Because it's like just the way I've always described it is to see it and to know it is just a layer of being able to dissolve it because you finally are
Well,
recognizing it's even there.
you can know about it, but you the spirit will reabsorb it. If you make the right connection, the spirit will absorb that negative identity, the energy, that's negative energy that's stuck there, and it will return it to you as positive energy. So, like this lady was saying, hey, I feel more energy. That's because that negative energy has been transformed from negative to positive by the spirit of the being,
That's beautiful. Yep.
and it can happen within an hour.
Right. Yeah.
So
Not months, years.
now, you're like this other lady said, I've been going to psychotherapy for all my life, and it's nothing's changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this
Exactly.
stuff really works. When I saw it, I went, "Wow, this is what I've been looking for all my life." And that's what one other MACE therapist, who was she was a physician's assistant. Same thing. She goes, "This crap isn't working." She did the same thing I did. She saw this and she went, "This works."
Yeah.
So
You actually get to the root cause.
you actually get to the root cause, and that root cause is removed. It's transformed into positive energy and brought back to you as positive energy. It's no longer in your universe. It's not there. It will never be triggered again. So even if you're hearing voices and MACE doesn't get rid of the voices, it will get rid of the trauma that the voices feed off of. So
Right.
you will get better anyway because that trauma is not there anymore.
Yeah. And I would dare say that it is the trauma that cracks the auric field, our subtle bodies, and allows the energy to penetrate in there. And therein lies the growth of that said negative entity, that unwanted.
There's other crazy stuff that cracks that field also, one of which is Ouija boards.
Yes.
They are not toys.
No, they are
Believe
not.
me, they are not toys.
Nope.
I know that several people who went psychotic on Ouija boards. They were playing, talking to whatever spirit they were talking to, and then one day they started hearing that spirit in their head,
Yep.
and it was there.
Yep.
They couldn't get rid of it. So now they were hearing voices just like the psychotics.
Yep.
Meth is another one. It just cracks open the psychic field and just allows these things to pour in. Meth is a very dangerous drug. Just cracks open your psychic protection. And the prisoners called it the devil's drug.
Wow.
So any of you guys thinking of going to a psychiatrist to get drugged for something or other, don't do that. Contact a MACE practitioner. You can go to www.com. There's a list of practitioners all over the planet. There's not a lot of us right now, but it's growing.
Yeah.
You'll come out a lot cheaper in a lot better shape than if you went to a psychiatrist and get poisoned with their
Yep.
toxic meds.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, this when I was little, all those games, Ouija boards were part of the games. When you're a kid, you have sleepovers. What do you do? And I, like you, had this. I could feel it. I could feel the negative. The, I could feel that energy, and it's hard to even describe because it's a feeling. But it's a disgusting feel. It's sick to my stomach immediately. It's the chills, but not in the like ooh exciting way. The opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
And people would play with that. I'm like, I'm not effing around with that. You guys are insane. Like, you have no clue what you're playing with.
Yeah, they don't.
They do not. And this is the same with any kind of ritualistic aspect of these people playing around with demonic magic at things or opening portals. It's dangerous, and it has really caused more havoc in this realm because it's seen as fun and games when it's clearly not. It's quite the opposite. Yeah. So you had mentioned establish the voices are not them. What would be another big thing solution wise and MACE looking up that option too?
Yeah, there's That's a Lie program.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Now you can go to my website at jerrymarzinsky.com, go to articles, and find That's a Lie program. And that works for everybody. It doesn't just work for schizophrenics. When you get a negative, intrusive thought, respond it with That's a lie.
Yeah.
So Sherry, the co-author of our book, I think you showed it once, this guy here,
Yep.
she came up with the That's a Lie program.
Yeah.
And she cured herself with that program alone, just not believing anything they said. Okay?
Yeah.
They hate the 23rd Psalm. They can't stand it. It's like burning them with a blowtorch.
So interesting. Yeah.
Everybody's got two guardian angels. They can't help you unless you ask them. Stay away from everything negative. No negative movies, no negative murder mysteries, no war movies, no. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about these patterns that I was talking about. If you look at those patterns, you'll see it's the same crap that's coming over the mainstream media right now.
Yeah.
There's a one-to-one correspondence between these patterns that the schizophrenics are hearing and what the mainstream media is cramming down our throats right now. ABC, NBC, CNN,
Yep.
BBC, all of them.
Yep.
It's all the same patterns: negativity, anti-religious, foster negative emotion. It's all the same. There's a one-to-one correspondence.
Yep.
These are demons that are running this planet right now.
Yep.
These Western leaders are psychotic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the interesting thing through all of my trainings and research, the one thing that has always been taken out of Western anything has been this protection magic, if you will, or we could say just wait. There was always, as a master herbalist, part of folklore was always protecting your home with specific plants and specific things. All of this used to be part of it was just what people were always doing and always did to protect their homes, protect their energy, and that was completely abolished at some point as crazy land. And the reality is then
science, trust the science.
Right, exactly.
You
And
know,
but in the East, there's ancient lineages of exorcists. I had one on my podcast, on this same podcast. So this is very real.
you look at the Bible, Jesus banished demons out of people 23 times.
Yeah.
And today it's that's 2,000 years ago. There's no demons now. Where'd they go? They all die off? No. You know, that's the biggest trick that the devil ever pulled over our eyes is that he doesn't exist. The demons don't exist.
These, yeah, and again, there's a million ways that we can even describe it. It's energy. It is a technology. It's like, the way that I've seen it is, it's really, it's like telepathic technology, right? So you could have entities that are utilizing this, because the strength level changes, as you also had noticed. It's different. Some will just are, oh, you're boring, I'm done with you. But that's not the case for all these people that are being inflicted with this. The strength of the very technology or voices are different. It's not the
Yeah,
same.
the patterns are the same. It's
Right.
almost like they're all made from the same cookie cutter in some
Right.
cosmic factory somewhere. Because they're all running on the same, they're all saying the same kind of things.
But the level is turned up on some.
The level, there's different levels of them. There's
Right.
different strengths of them. So the basic ones, the regular voices, they're like the foot soldiers.
Right.
And now the foot soldiers have to give a good part of the energy that they steal to their bosses above them. So they're slaves.
Right.
They're assigned to destroy specific people. And if they don't do a good enough job, they'll remove them and replace them with others. I remember there was one girl where her voices weren't doing good enough to messing her up. So she said they took her old voice away and they put somebody meaner in there. Said he wasn't mean enough. And they'll just keep pushing. They'll push they're constant, they're relentless. Nothing else to do. So they will just keep pushing the original personality as far out of the way as they can and take over as much control as they can, until you get something like this guy that I read you this poem, where he becomes a murderer, a mass murderer.
Yeah. Like you said, completely taken over.
I haven't seen that much, but I've seen it a handful of times where they're completely taken over.
You said it before, Loosh. Feeding, literally, it is these factions at this point, food. And there's enough, we could have talked for days or weeks about the source, or were these part of creation. There's a lot of, but I think the important fact, and I think Sherry had even mentioned this at some point I had read the last That's a Lie stuff that had been written, in saying it doesn't matter that origin. As much as it matters to realize that this is real.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what psychiatry is blocking people from understanding. They're telling people it isn't real.
Exactly.
And they're doing the human race a horrible disservice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could see all the deception and all the lies that they perpetrated for decades here. Yeah. Their DSM, their genetic bullcrap, their biochemical bullcrap. We're the only ones who can treat this stuff. We're the only ones that know what it is because we went to college and we learned all this stuff. And they're not curing anybody. Nobody's being cured by those people.
No.
They're treating symptoms. They're merely treating symptoms. Yeah. They're not getting at the cause like causism does, like the MACE method does.
And it's like the magnitude of the disservice is actually, it's not even possible for us to say the magnitude in which this is elongated pain and it's totally and absolutely unnecessary suffering. But I would say that's by design also. So yeah, and when you get taken in, I would say your travels into the underworld is like seeing the underbelly, the truth of the world. It's hard to come out on the other side without being affected in some way, because you're seeing when you see the truth and how horrific it is, how long humanity has suffered at the sake of that this has gone on for this long. That's what I've had a lot of to work on, even, is to be able to be okay with knowing all of those things, because there's bound to be even more things that get uncovered and unveiled as we go.
Yeah, it's a pretty ugly side of life. It's not pleasant to look at.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't pleasant to work in a lot of those institutions.
Yeah. I
it wasn't boring.
Far from that.
It was a good place for an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah. Yeah, good thing you have
Like I
that
said, if
adventure.
I didn't have that, I don't think I could have come through this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I thank you for your service in this way because, again, it's a very unique journey and a journey in which is very vital to the uncovering of these kinds of truths, which I, again, I believe this is a topic that is one of the most important things that anyone can talk about. And the more that we talk about this, the more that I hope that it can ripple and truly start to affect change on a greater level if people can separate themselves from these factions, if you will, whatever words we want to say, so that they know that is not their true spirit.
And the things they act on also, that these things get them to act on, that's not them either. They're being deceived.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
what's there is a pure spirit. So we're physical beings and spiritual beings. We're in those two worlds. So we're affected by spiritual beings. We're affected by physical beings.
Right.
And here they are trying to block out the spiritual. Trust the science. Trust the science. You got Fauci up there. Trust the science as he's murdering millions of people
Yeah.
all over the planet.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
why that scumbag's still walking and free.
I know. And the list on that end is so long globally, truly. The more that you really see those truths, this is the underbelly that actually is not in hiding, but rather in plain sight, which is just a whole other level of evil, vile, truly.
Have you ever read anything by Carlos Castaneda? This Carlos was a apprentice to a very powerful shaman in Mexico. He called himself a sorcerer. Okay, so here I want to just read this one page where he's talking about this is at the end of the series of books he wrote. I'm just going to start off here where he's talking. He said, I haven't heard all the claims yet. Wait a bit longer and see how you feel. I'm going to subject you to a blitz. So this is the or the sorcerer talking to Carlos. He said, that is, I'm going to subject your mind to tremendous onslaughts, and you cannot get up and leave because you're caught. Not because I'm holding you prisoner, but because something in you will prevent you from leaving. That's like me. I couldn't walk away from this crazy stuff. While another part of you is going to go truthfully berserk. He says, so brace yourself. He said, there's something in me which was, I felt, a glutton for punishment. That's like me. He said he was right. He said I wouldn't have left the house for the world, and yet I didn't one bit the inanities he was spouting. I want to. Here's the shaman again saying, I want to appeal to your analytical mind. Don Juan said, think for a moment and tell me how you would explain the contradiction between the intelligence of man, the engineer, and the stupidity of his systems of beliefs, or the stupidity of his contradictory behavior. Sorcerers believe that the predators have given us our systems of beliefs, or ideas of good and evil, our social mores. So he's talking about these the archons, the
Yeah.
predators, the voices. He says they are the ones who set up our hopes and expectations and dreams of success or failure. They have given us covetousness, greed, and cowardice. It is the predators who make us complacent, routinely, and egomaniacal. And then Carlos asked him, but how can they do this, Don Juan? I asked. He said, somehow angered further by what he was saying. Do they whisper all this in our ears while we are asleep? Don Juan said, no, they don't do it that way. That's idiotic, Don Juan said, smiling. They are definitely more efficient and organized than that. In order to keep us obedient and meek and weak, the predators engage themselves in a stupendous maneuver. Stupendous, of course, from the point of view of a fighting strategist. A horrendous maneuver from the point of view of those who suffer it. They give us their mind. He said, do you hear me? The predators give us their mind, which becomes our mind, which is exactly what the voices are doing to schizophrenics. And they're doing it to all of us. They're giving us
Mhm.
their mind. He said the predator's mind is filled with baroque, contradictory, morose, and it's filled with fear of being discovered any minute now. Just like we're saying now, we're exposing them. They're
Yeah.
terrified of that. because once people are aware of it, they're not going to feed them anymore.
Exactly.
Okay? He says, I know that even though you have never suffered hunger, went on, you have food anxiety, which is none other than the anxiety of the predator who fears that at any moment now its maneuver is going to be uncovered and food is going to be denied. Through the mind, which after all is their mind, the predators inject into the lives of human beings whatever is convenient for them, and they ensure in this manner a degree of security to act as a buffer against fear.
That's it.
So it's here's the shaman telling Carlos, this is what they are. They hit us all. I remember a preacher. He was the best preacher I've ever had. He said he was standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon and you hear a voice popping in its head said, jump, just jump. And we all hear that.
Yeah.
You're driving in traffic, you go, what would it be like to drive on the oncoming traffic? Or you're standing on a bridge and you go, what would it be like to jump off?
Yeah.
They hit us all.
In some way, shape, or form until we full on realize. And even if when you realize, you hear what I call it is knocks, tests, like coming in, are you just little knock? Are you good? Can we bring you down now for feeling? And those little knocks are really intriguing because it's like when you learn to feel that energy, you immediately can know, oh, that's okay. Yeah, this isn't me.
That's them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I imagine attaching one of those light flash grenades, the stun grenades, to that negative thought and sending it back down the hill with that explosive on it, and then imagining it going off down there. Going, okay, take your thought back.
Yeah, don't want this. Thanks.
Yeah, thought by thought, you have to be aware.
Exactly.
That those thoughts are coming in from the dark side.
And the one big thing that I think that is imperative is there's nothing to fear in this. It's just the awareness of this, which that's what I thought was interesting about the approach. I think that with all of the propaganda around the evil, it brings fear. It's just another layer of fear. Whereas that's propaganda. So if you let that all go and just try to reclaim the sovereignty of the soul, then you have the power to protect and stay sovereign in your truth, in your light, whatever words that work for a unique soul. But these voices are not something to fear.
Don't give in to the fear.
Exactly.
That was one rule that I always had. No matter how terrifying what's happening in front of you is, you can't give in to the fear because then they win. They know they got you. As soon as you give in to that fear, they got you.
Because that's like the total power being taken away. Yeah. Yeah. If humanity, I really feel that when humanity realizes how powerful they are, how powerful humanity is, and what the original truth of what a human means, that alone.
I believe you're right.
That alone is power, taking the power back.
That's why they're always trying to beat us down.
Exactly. We've seen that play out on a scale in the last 4 years.
Yep, they're making a major push right now.
Yeah, yes, they are. Yeah, and the plans for things in 2025. You just can see what I've always looked at this as. You can see the strategy truly that it has taken, and in a strategic way, you're like, wow, unified you are.
Yeah, and look how time after time they're trying to terrify us.
Yeah,
COVID, and then bird flu, and then all this other kind of crap that they keep coming up with.
Yeah.
And the earth is dying, and the ocean is rising, and the temperature is rising, and it's all this negative horse crap that there's no truth to it. But since they control the mainstream media, they're perpetuating it on these lies on all of us.
Exactly. A barrage, just constant. It's just like you said, relentless. That is like a perfect word for it because it continues to this day. And that's how we know that when that ceases to exist, then we know we're in a different experience. But until such point, it's still here. It's still a huge problem causing unnecessary suffering.
Don't comply.
Yeah, exactly. I have a hat that says "Don't acquiesce." It's pretty long. Yeah. Jerry, this has been beyond a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for your time today and the energy to be here. Let's do a couple of things. Is there anything, any last thoughts you'd like to drop? And then, of course, we have all of your information and all the things we're doing. Let people know where they can find you too.
Okay. You can go to my website at jerrymarzinsky.com.
Perfect.
Okay. There's a lot more information there. And I have people who have gone through schizophrenia and come out the other side who are willing to come on and talk also. If in the future you want me to arrange for that.
Wow, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Disrupt Now podcast. Please leave us a review. Also, if you want to get these episodes to your inbox, go to disruptnowpodcast.com and you can drop your email in. You can also see all of the episodes since day one. If you'd like to connect, we have a couple of different ways. You can join us on Telegram. The group is called Awakening Magick. Or if you want to drop a line, email us at info@natalieviglione.com. Thank you for being here on this journey to awaken the magic again.